So I thought I'd do a quick video about basically how this kit goes together and what the spec of my setup is. Obviously, you know what turbo and what turbo kit is running, but there's various other bits as well that people have been asking me about. So I thought I would just cover it all in this video. So start the engine. It's a stock 2ZZ engine. Internally, the only thing that has been changed is it's got 7 stage 2 cams in it. Now I had those before the turbo kit was even thought about. They were a great mod, so they're basically just a carryover. I don't know if the stock cams are better for turbo or not. I don't personally think that. I think that these stage 2s work really well. But yeah, that's basically the engine. The next thing I suppose we can start, as we can see the fuel rail, is the fuel system. It's running 550cc injectors at the moment, although I will be upgrading to 630cc injectors shortly, after the Christmas period's over and I get them from MWR. Reason for that is, I'd say generally, most people run 630cc injectors on turbo or supercharged 2ZZs. The injectors are cheap enough. They're actually cheaper than 550s, for instance. And obviously they provide enough flow really for as far as you can go with the returnless fuel system. I got 550s as I was running a piggyback ECU initially, and as a rule of thumb you don't want to go over double your injector size on a piggyback ECU, so that's why it's got 550s. However, those have been sold and there will be some MWR 630cc injectors going in when I get them. It's got a HRC 255 fuel pump, which I can't really show you because obviously it's in the tank. But that pump was a direct drop-in for the Corolla. If you've ever done any work on the fuel pump of the Corolla, you'll know that the housings are very, very fiddly. They're not like the Celica. So obviously a pump that just fits is ideal. And the connector's not the same, but that's something easily sorted. Next thing, I suppose, is the oil lines. Well, the oil line, should I say, that feeds the turbo with oil. Now, the way I've done this is I've put a T-piece. Now, I should note that this actually came as part of a kit from MWR. They do an oil and water line kit for Garrett GT series turbos. And although it was a little bit expensive, I was quite impressed. That it just basically came with everything. So you see there, I've got the pressure switch in, and there's a T-piece that comes out the pressure port on the block. And basically what this does is, obviously normally the pressure switch just being there, and the pressure switch, I think it's about 6 psi it's set for. Obviously you'd want to run a lot more than that when the engine's you know, up to decent RPMs. But basically, obviously at idle, the spec is 6 to 13 psi in the manual. So this is set for 6. So obviously anything lower than that, this switch activates, you get a warning light on the dash. But anyway, what happens is oil comes out this pressure port into this T-piece, and it goes up this line. Now this line goes to the turbo, and that's what feeds it with oil. Now it goes through a restrictor, obviously for Garrett turbo, but that's not something I can really show you. The other way you can do this is off a sandwich plate. Obviously in my case I couldn't do that as I already have a sandwich plate for the oil cooler, and I would advise an oil cooler for this kit anyway, or any turbo kit on this engine, because the stock cooler really isn't up for the increased oil temperatures of of a turbo. So that's basically the oil feed. I'll go through the return when I go under the car. You can see the lines where they go through, and obviously the oil cooler's there. The next thing would be the coolant lines. Now the coolant lines they intercept the throttle body, and you won't be able to see it, but there is a line that would typically come out from the side of the block down here and would go into the throttle body and then back through, well obviously through, and then back into the block. Now obviously this is to stop the throttle body freezing up. Obviously these engines were sold in all sorts of climates, so they have this feature. Now what the line kit came with, now this is obviously MWR's kit, but they come from, basically we intercept this line, this circuit for the throttle body. So that comes out and then it goes down. Now the turbo, obviously coolant can flow, you know, both ways. Well, it doesn't have a direction of flow, but what you have to do is you have to tilt the housing, sorry, the cartridge, to a certain angle, and this is recommended by Garrett. I can't remember what it is. It was something like 30 degrees. No, not been 30 degrees. I can't remember what it was anyway. But it has to go, obviously, when you tilt it, then obviously it has to go through one way and out the other. Now, I can't remember. Basically, the way it's set up is it goes round, down, through on this side of the engine, obviously towards the back of it. So that's the in. Goes through, obviously, the centre section, and then back down. And then it comes into the throttle body. Passes through the throttle body as normal, and then obviously goes back into the engine. And that was just the simplistic way of doing it, and that was the way. That's the way I think MWR do it, because that's what their kit implies. The lines were the right length to do that, so that's the way I've done it, and that should work fine. Obviously, it doesn't need loads of coolant. It's only a smallish pipe, and that was ideal. The next thing, really, I suppose, would be to go under the car, and I'll show you the bits underneath. When I installed the turbo kit itself, I removed this bar here. I'll just hold the camera different. This bar here, which is a cross member. Now, the front engine mount actually bolts to this completely, and the rear engine mount bolts through it, so you'll have to remove the rear engine mount. But apart from that, it's just this bolt and 2 bolts here, and then obviously this just comes out, and that gives you so much more access to install that, as you never ever get all that up there without removing that bar. So obviously that way the manifold went up there, the turbo went up there, and that basically is how that's installed. Obviously I don't know what it's like on the Celica. I'm guessing it'll be tighter, but it goes up there. That's the way I've done it. You might have to drop the engine on the Celica, but until Lee fits one, we won't know that. Obviously intercooler pipework comes underneath, but again, I won't really go into that because there's a million ways to do it. This is the oil return. Now, how these typically work is it will come in back into the sump. Obviously, if it was high up, it could come through, any way back into the engine, but the sump is obviously the best way in this setup. Now, this is actually a no weld fitting. I did weld a fitting on initially, and I broke it when I torqued this fitting. Well, not this fitting, because I broke that fitting as well. But so this is a no weld fitting. I actually prefer these, and I've just sealed it round it. And although it wouldn't leak anyway, it just gives it that. And basically, obviously, it comes through. The oil comes down through the turbo, down this line here, when obviously it's passed through. Not much oil comes down here, into there, back into the sump. Happy days. You can see the coolant lines. Let's see if I can see there. That's one of them up there. If I can get it to focus on it. Yeah, you can just see it up there. That's one side of it, and they just use banjo bolts. I connected the lines with the turbo 3. It's down here. As obviously you'll never get the you never get the oil feed in, obviously up top, because the manifold's in the way, and you'll never be able to connect the coolant lines up. So if you're going to fit it, I'd just suggest support it obviously, but you do it loose here, and obviously fit that up, and then that's done. The downpipe, that goes down the back. Now this actually comes out more or less in the stock location, and I'm pretty sure that's how Lee designed it. This is a section I've put on it for the time being as I'm building up something to connect to my existing exhaust, which is not stock, because the old downpipe used to basically run the full length of this. But I suspect that would connect up to a stock system if you put a flange on it, correct flange, because that would be more or less in the right place. So obviously that runs there, and as you can see there, I'm making up a piece to go between there and there. I'm just waiting on some parts. Obviously it's Christmas at the moment, so part delivery is not exactly at its most speediest at the moment. So you can see there, there's going to be a flex section and a few other bits. But anyway, let's come out from underneath. yeah, the only other thing really worth mentioning is vacuum lines. Obviously there's two that go to the wastegate, which is down there. You can fit that from the top on the Corolla. Again, I don't know how you could get, if you could do it on the Celica, but you have one. One is basically a pressure source, which is the bottom line, and the top one is obviously from the boost controller. If you were just going to run spring pressure, you would just need one, and that just needs to connect to anywhere on your intercooler pipework before the throttle body. Intake, this piece here, that is a 90, and I think it's actually 290s, that, you know, I can't remember. Might be, I can't remember. Basically this, you will find that this is very difficult. There is not a lot of clearance between the gear cable brackets and the snout of the turbo, so I had to cut and mess about with a 3-inch 90, but that's a 3-inch all the way down, and obviously that won't restrict the turbo. So yeah, that's I think that's everything on my list. So yeah, if you've got any questions, just leave them in the comments below. Thanks for watching.